Well, first I'd like to express the appreciation of myself and I think everyone in Boone for the first responders and the other emergency personnel and town staff and Red Cross persons who went out in that storm and assisted people and helped rescue a number of people. We owe a great deal of thanks to those people. Now, what we can do is kind of limited. One suggestion that a number of businessmen have made to me is to daylight the Crowd Creek and avoid some of the problems that exist near this precision printing company. That certainly is a possibility, but it's not going to solve the entire problem. And it's a technical problem in some ways in that the town controls about 10% of the stormwater system. The county a bit more, and the state even more because of the roads. And so first we're going to have to figure out a way in which we can work together to begin to address these issues of flooding, which we've had for years and years. It's going to take a lot of cooperation, I think, between different political entities and also a great deal of investment. That's going to be inexpensive. One person told me today that I took a tour around the flooded areas. One person said it's going to cost possibly as much as $42 million to deal with this, and where that money's going to come from is a question.
Mr. Perjury.
Thank you. You'll see in the campaign literature that I developed a couple of months ago when I decided to run that actually addressing the stormwater system finally was one of the things I listed. And the reason, I didn't even know about what was going to happen yesterday, because this has been happening ever since I moved to Boone in 1986. As we continue to allow development on the sides of the mountains, we increase impervious surface, we let people build in floodplains. You know, the old Lowe's building down across from the hospital was torn down, I think, because it always flooded and they moved. It was in the floodplain. And now the university has built a huge, and I'm sure it'll be a wonderful building, in the same location. We can't just keep approving people building in floodplain and floodway. All those flood maps, in my view, are off. We're getting 100-year storms every year. We're getting 500-year storms every 2 years. The numbers don't hold water anymore. But the streets do. Yesterday, it was the worst I've seen on King Street ever. We need to actually take action. We don't need a committee, by the way. The town council knows what to do. There's been engineering. We need to actually adopt a plan and start to implement it. May have to be in stages because it is extraordinarily expensive.
Ms. Owen.
Sorry.
And the only thing I can add to that is that I think we do need to come together. Because I looked in the newspaper and it said it's 42 million. I said, where are we getting this kind of money? And why did this happen? My question is why? Because if we knew a long time ago we had these problems. We're not doing anything. I don't know, I shouldn't say that. I'm not doing anything because I don't know what to do. Okay, but I think that if we have better conversations with people who know the structure of our town in terms of this place you can't put a house, then don't have them put the house there. Think of some other way to do it. And we need others around that work with that. And that's basically all I can say about this flooding issue, because I'm a little concerned.
Ms. Underground Collins.
Yes, the council is aware of it, and we are going to start addressing it. Anybody that knows my dad, who was a residential and commercial appraiser for 50 years and a teacher at Appalachian, the first thing he said when they started covering up the streams in Boone is, y'all will regret this. And we have, and we are, and we're regretting it. Daylighting of the area around the Standard, I think, eased up a little bit of some of the flooding. I don't know if it really helped or not, but I know it's helped in the previous rainstorms. But we've got to look at areas, we've got to work together with the county, with the state, with the federal government, with FEMA, to come to some kind of solution so this doesn't happen and damage our personal and our real property and our investment that we've made in this town.
Mr. Cable.
So my biggest concern is actually about public safety. So a lot of this stormwater, the stormwater system is actually on private property. It's not owned by the town. When you look at the FEMA flood maps, some of the drone footage that we saw, it looked like some of the waters were at or above some of the 500-year flood marks the other day. So, you know, for those of us that do believe in science and do believe that we can predict what a 1 degree Celsius temperature rise might do to our community, we can also predict exactly where that flood water is going to go, and we know exactly what buildings are going to get flooded if we get rain at that level. And unsurprisingly to some of us, those buildings did flood when we got a storm that large. So the real question is, if we're going to spend public dollars to fix this issue, I believe that we need to make sure not just the public safety issue, but what is the public going to get for putting their money up for fixing this issue that's largely due to private development on private property with private asphalt that's causing some of this flood at record levels.
Mr. Ashcroft.
I like Sam's idea about making sure we have fresh flood maps to work with, for one thing. We need that in order to have a solid foundation from which to plan how to attack this problem. The scale of it, as indicated by Mayor Brant, $42 million number, that's staggering, even with the town playing a heavy role. And for many of the private property owners, that's unaffordable as well. It's going to take a joint effort. I know that some towns have used things like stormwater utility districts, in essence, where people are assessed a certain amount per foot of linear foot for the system on their property to help contribute to the cost of putting in the infrastructure needed to manage the system. It's also going to require some different approaches in terms of how we landscape areas. There are, or at least there have been in the past, I know, some different type of surface materials can be used in paving lots. You can have paving lots that are not totally asphalt and totally impermeable. You can have different types of materials that allow some drainage to occur there. That would help. So there's a combination of technical and financial measures that can help us address that. But it's going to be long-term. It's going to be expensive. We can't hide that.
All right, we'll move on to the next question.